Thank you. I know there's lots to share, and hopefully some of our newer participants have been briefed on some of the highlights of yesterday. And just to let you know what's coming between now and 12 o'clock when we close out this forum, we are going to have the opening addresses for the next hour, and then we'll have a session focused on the role of the SMMEs in the just transition, and then we'll close out the day with a last panel discussion focused on the SMME finance and support structures in South Africa. So that is how we'll spend our hours together until 12 o'clock, and without any further delay, we'll call on our first speaker to make his keynote address. He is Samuel Mabena. He's from the Chief Directorate of Climate Change Mitigation and Specialist Monitoring Services from our ministry, the Department of Forestry, Fisheries and Environment, the DFFE. Samuel, over to you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Well, my role today is a simple one because I'm actually a messenger from the Department of Forestry, Fisheries and the Environment. There is one very good aspect that is actually relevant to all of us, is that all nations welcome messengers. And as such, this gives me comfort to know that also as a messenger, you are welcoming me. But at the same time, I would like to echo a word of welcome from my minister. He would have liked to be personally present in this to preside over this occasion. But due to pressing other official undertakings, he's not with us this morning. However, I'm going to just provide the keynote address on his behalf. Our guest of honor, Your Excellency, the German Ambassador to South Africa, Lesotho and Swaziland, Mr. Enrico Brandt, the Deputy Head of Mission Delegation of the EU to the Republic of South Africa, Mr. Pencho Garrido, the Country Director to South Africa, Lesotho and Swaziland, Mr. Garrido, Mr. Joanne, Yawitch from the JETP office, official and representative of NGO and civil society organizations, chief executive officers, managers of SMEs, the representative of Indalo, inclusive and project managers, distinguished guests and participants, ladies and gentlemen. Climate change is a global challenge that poses considerable risks and is a critical constraint to inclusive and sustainable economic growth for South Africa. As such, addressing it will require both global and domestic solutions. We need holistic action to address climate change with participation by various role players, including my department, the National Treasury, the Department of Small Businesses Development, the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition, the Provincial Department of Economic Development and Tourism, the private sector, as well as civil society, to support, as well as the international collaboration partners, such as the government of Germany, which is one of our leading partners on climate action. Distinguished guests, South Africa can be a significant global player in the green economy, more so as we are a developing country with intent to address key challenges facing our society, that of inequality, poverty, and unemployment. South Africa should aim to be the leading supplier of climate change knowledge, technologies, and services. The just transition process affords us such an opportunity. South Africa's climate change policy, which was adopted by government in 2011, knows that underemployment is a key issue for South Africa. in a critical vulnerability that could be severely worsened by climate change. The policy further articulates for government to work in collaboration with industry role players to promote investment in human and productive resources, and so enable sustainable growth in green sectors, whilst incentivizing to reallocate capital to lower carbon investment. The policy furthermore defines two key instruments that will be used to move employment from a carbon-intensive economy to a lower carbon economy, which are the National Employment and Vulnerability Assessment, which we call it NEVA, as well as the Sector Job Resilience Plan. The National Employment and Vulnerability Assessment and the Sector Job Resilience Plans provide policy instruments that are key for a just transition. And these are the tools that are intended to protect vulnerable groups that may lose their jobs or livelihoods because of climate change impacts and the effects of the energy transition. The NEVA assesses the climate change and transition impacts on jobs, while the sector job resilience plans protect vulnerable communities to safeguard their income and livelihoods through transition to more sustainable development. I should emphasize that we are in the second cycle of updating our NEVA. The policy further notes that business industries have a fundamental role in South Africa's climate response, including in the implementation of the Just Transition Framework. The private sector, in particular, the SMEs, are key stakeholders of the Just Transition, as their role include building business models that demonstrate company-level Just Transition practices, as well as by facilitating corporate investment in the just transition economy, green economy. The process of deploying the sector job resilience plan built on earlier work on national employment vulnerability assessment and the associated baseline that was developed by DFFE. This helps to identify sectors and industries that could be most affected by climate change and appropriate policy intervention measures on 5 value chains: coal value chain, which is key, the key one for South Africa, more so because of our reliance on coal-based energy system. The petroleum-based transport, agriculture, and tourism that seem particularly affected by the transition. Ladies and gentlemen, in 2022, the Department of Forestry, Fisheries and Environment finalized the development of the business cases in Mpumalanga, addressing the broad themes of job creation, sustainable livelihoods that emanate from the just transition in the Mpumalanga province. The development of the business case focused on coal waste products, just transition, social protection plan for the areas of interest in the Mpumalanga province. This includes low carbon just transition for the mining, timber, pulp, paper sectors, and identification of opportunities to use biomass from invasive island plants for the supply of processed heat and electricity, and measures to accelerate the division of early warning system and tools to ensure food security and support the Just Transition Initiative. Following that, in 2023, which is last year, the DFFE embarked on the first phase of the implementation of the sector job resilience plans, which was to pilot priority project in Mpumalanga, which is a just transition hotspot. As informed by the findings of the first NEVA report, 4 municipalities in Mpumalanga exhibited highly undiversified economies that rely heavily on coal mining. Emalahleni, Stiefstewart, Mtsugalikwa, and Kovenmbeki. It is for this reason that Mpumalanga province was prioritized for the piloting of the sector job resilience plan under the current project supported by the government of Germany. We note with appreciation that this phase is supported by the government of Germany through GIZ. We are informed there are innovative and viable project proposals submitted by our SMEs. And this project, under this project for implementation, These business models will provide lessons learned for future replicates and upgrades during the sector job resilience plan upgrades. We learned that under this project, a total of 8 small businesses will be awarded small grants to develop and implement projects that create jobs opportunities, in particular in Mpumalanga. This is good news, as these initiatives will inform our priority areas to upscale and broaden access for financing for small and medium-sized businesses to contribute to job creation across the province, across the provinces in the country. Distinguished guests, today's event is taking place at a crucial juncture of our transformative transition to a vision, to a low carbon economy vision. Just recently, in July this year, the world community and society at large witnessed the enactment of the Climate Change Act 22 of 2024 that will catalyze our national efforts to combat climate change more sustainably over the short, medium, and long term. The Act sets out institutional arrangements to ensure harmonization of climate-related policies, plans, programs across all tiers of governments. Furthermore, the Act provides for the regulatory framework for the establishment of the Presidential Climate Commission and defines key policy instruments on climate change mitigation and adaptation in South Africa. Most importantly, the Act enshrines the just transition process and establishes an institutional framework on the just transition in alignment with our national development plans, imperatives, and as well as goals. The just transition seeks to center the interests of those that are most affected by low carbon transition, including workers, vulnerable communities, suppliers of goods and services, specifically the small, medium, as well as medium-sized enterprises. As we pilot the sector job resilient project, government is intent on building a progressive NEVA that will evolve to propel our disadvantaged communities to more sustainable form of livelihoods. To this end, I'm pleased to announce that the Department of Forestry, Fisheries and Environment has initiated a process to update the current NEVA, taking into consideration a need to build on what has been achieved. The updated NEVA will feature an online dynamics, what we call the dynamic NEVA platform that will track jobs on real-time basis to provide policy advisory on just transition performance on jobs across all value chains in the just transition discourse. Ladies and gentlemen, the SMEs have a critical role to play in the transition. Their role includes maximizing the division of technology that can limit job losses. This is central for agriculture and as well as petroleum-based transport, and to a lesser extent to metals and tourism, promoting economic diversification in communities that rely disproportionately on vulnerable industries. This relates primarily to relatively small mining and farming towns, assisting individual workers and producers to transition to new livelihoods through active labor market policies, among others. The global shift towards a low carbon economy is creating a demand for sustainable products and services. So SMEs can tap into this growing market by offering eco-friendly solutions from energy efficient appliances to waste reduction services, among others. Distinguished guests, may I thank and congratulate all SMEs that are participating in this project. I'm informed participants will benefit from training, business mentorship, and capital investment support to implement prioritized projects. For us, the proposals that you have submitted for support under this project are important as they form a basis for future project upgrades. I wish to all project proponents, I wish all proponents to assume leadership in implementing your project ideas and partner with us to innovate, develop and deploy solutions that you have brought up in your project proposals. Indeed, your efforts will contribute in generating substantial employment and unlock opportunities in new emerging green economy boom. As government, we take note of challenges facing SMEs to access climate finance, to implement new investment in innovative technologies to mitigate and adapt to climate change. This project is an initiative to bridge this gap, to fast-track support system for SMEs, to enable them to become drivers of social inclusion into new emerging opportunities provided by the transition. Furthermore, the project provides an opportunity for our SMEs to advance your entrepreneurship skills for achieving development goals. On its part, government will actively pursue the mobilization and effective use both domestically and international resources to ensure our SMEs are capacitated to champion the just transition process. As government, we ask all social partners, including SMEs, to work with us to achieve our shared vision on attaining good life for all in a carbon-constrained future anchored by a sustainable economy. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to take this opportunity to thank our international partners, and in particular the government of Germany and other collaborating countries, as well as our partners, for extending support to our country on this project. We look forward to a continued mutual collaboration to advance the Paris Agreement ambition. Lastly, I would like to thank all participants, including project managers, project executing agency Indalo inclusive, for leading the implementation of this project in collaboration with my department. As government, we stand firm ensuring that you get all necessary support in delivering your noble mandate. Last but not least, I wish you all success and fruitful delivery of your projects in collaboration with communities in Mpumalanga. May our just transition vision be a driver of prosperity in our society for the present and future generations in South Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mabena. Next, we have Joanne Yawitch. She's the head of the JET, or the Just Energy Transition Project Management Unit, located in the Presidency. Thank you, Joanne.
Thank you, and good morning to everyone here. I'm going to do a very South African thing and observe all protocol, and a very warm welcome to all of you. I think in particular to our guests. I hope that you are learning a lot about South Africa and our unique approach to this issue, and to our international partners. What I want to talk about in this very short input is really about South Africa's approach to both climate change and to the just transition. And I'm hoping that in a very short time I can give some sense of some of both the challenges and the opportunities that we face as an energy intensive developing country trying to take forward our climate change objectives. And I think that if our president was here, I'm going to start off by saying what he always says, which is that South Africa is committed to building a low carbon and climate resilient society. And it is committed to doing it at a pace and a scale that the country can afford. And I think that in those words, there's kind of a world of issues that lie underneath that I really want to talk about. But before I do, a few weeks ago, I was in Poland, and I went to a lignite mine about 200 kilometers outside of Warsaw that is due to be decommissioned by 2038. I think with the intention from the Polish government that that decommissioning date is brought forward. And what was so interesting for me was that the conversations, the issues, the concerns were almost identical to what we see in the coal belt in South Africa. So I think that we are dealing with a world transition. I think certainly in Europe, there is a very long lead up that many countries have had, and many are in the last phases of that transition. And I think have been able to conduct it with a great deal more resources than we have as a developing country. But I mean, it is so fascinating when you talk to people on the ground, how the issues really are the same the world over. And so the question is how then do we move forward? So big societal transitions are complex, two things. They're always complex and they are always contested. And they are always contested because in moving from one way of, in this case, running an economy, powering an economy to another, there are inevitable winners and losers. And when you are operating in a country where 80% of the economy is coal-fired, where the people who are running that coal economy are in a very small geographical area, where that geographical area, the issues of poverty and unemployment in that geographical area are worse than the rest of the country, and where those workers, relative to others in the country, are well paid, relatively well paid compared to other workers in other parts of the country, inevitably the risks for those people and the contestation around how that transition unfolds becomes a very critical issue for everybody in the country. So I think that's the one side of it. I think the second side of it is that we are trying to take forward a low carbon transition in a context where we have, for at least the last 12 years now, been dealing with a very serious energy security crisis. You're all very lucky to be in South Africa at this point in time, where for the last 5 or 6 months we've had power. If you'd been here last year, no doubt the lights would have gone off at some point in the session, and you would have had to re-switch on the projector as you then switched from grid power to generators or whatever the backup power was. What that has done is to allow for a renewables industry that was already beginning to grow to really expand significantly, and that is an area of opportunity for all of us. But the issues of energy security, the issues of the socio-economic impact of the transition and the way that we run it are going to be absolutely critical in the way South Africa sees that climate and development nexus coming together. And it is incumbent upon all of us to ensure that in the way that we do it and in the way that we take it forward, that we are both reducing our emissions, building resilience to the impacts of climate change, which is a serious concern for us, as well as ensuring that we are trying to put in place the interventions and doing things at a pace and in a way that is going to address the needs of the people who are most at risk. And it's not just the workers. It is the entire ecosystem and the value chains that exist around the coal economy. It's from women who sit outside the gates of the coal power station selling food for a living. It is the people who transport coal. It is a world of people in those areas that the coal economy has kept going for over a century, and who we now need to come in and support to think, imagine a different and hopefully better kind of life. So the work that we do, and the work that we do in collaboration with a very wide set of partners in this room. And I'm going to single out some of them, not only our international partners who are walking this journey with us, but I think importantly, national government departments, the Mpumalanga provincial government, Sis Dudu sitting over there, Carla from the Mpumalanga Green Cluster Agency, Rest from Indalo Inclusive. We have had to come together and work as one South African team to try and work out how it is that we are going to support and enable people on the ground who are the most affected by the transition to be able to invest in new and different opportunities. We're in the very early stages of this journey. We've learned some very bitter lessons. And let me finish off by talking about the lessons that we've learned. I think the first thing that we have learned, there are 3 or 4 things. The first thing that we have learned is that you cannot switch off coal plants until the alternatives have been put in place. In particular, until the investments in economic diversification and in economic opportunities at ground level, until those are in place and generating results, and until those coal plants have been repurposed and repowered, whether it is with renewables, whether it is with battery storage, whether it's with anything else, until that has happened, you cannot switch off and take those livelihoods away. So I think that is the first thing that we've learned. The second thing is that in response to the energy security problems that I spoke about, we've had to delay some of the decommissioning dates. And given the fact that we are locked into a commitment internationally to run a very big program around a set of emission reductions and a set of decommissioning targets, it's been a very complex process of explaining why it is that we've had to push out those dates by about 2 years, but it's also given us the time to be able to do this work. I think the third thing, and maybe the most important thing, is that there's a huge amount of work and quite significant financial resources that are starting to go into the coal belt in South Africa. However, there is a strong sense from people on the ground that they are not benefiting. I was in a session last week in Mpumalanga where there was a dialogue between business and labor. And it was incredibly interesting. All the worker representatives in that room talked about an unjust transition. And so for that transition to be just, there's got to be a lot more work done. And we've got to find the ways that people on the ground and workers are feeling the benefit of the interventions that are being put in place and are feeling the benefit at scale. I mean, I think the question of scale is very important. From our side, and later on this afternoon, one of my colleagues is going to talk to you about our program in a lot more detail. We are trying to put in place a mechanism that might assist in being able to drive the resources and the support from both the international community and from local donors down to the ground in ways that will allow community and worker organizations to feel more empowered. And so we are setting up a matchmaking facility, a funding platform. It's going to be launched next week in Mpumalanga. And what it is intended to do is to provide project preparation support to community organizations, to SMMEs, to women's organizations, youth organizations, trade unions, community level organizations, in order that the ideas that they have around new and different communities can be supported so that you can get fundable projects, because very often people have great ideas, but they don't know how to put them together in a way that you can really take them forward. And then what we are hoping is that we can work with the donors, grant makers on the other side in order to ensure that there is a better flow of funding into those initiatives. I think that there is one last thing that we do have in South Africa, which is a really important asset around this. It is the fact it's both positive and some people would see it as negative. I think we are a very noisy democracy. I think everybody in South Africa has a voice and wants to make it heard. And while it might be frustrating in terms of the amount of time that it can then take in order to be able to engage with people in a way that allows sufficient consensus is a very important South African concept, but to allow the sufficient consensus that allows work to go forward, it is of absolute utmost importance. And I think linked to that is the commitment to work in a way that brings together multiple stakeholders right across society, so that government sees itself working in partnership with a wide range of actors internationally as well as domestically. And I think that those are our strengths. I think that if we are going to be able to take this transition forward in South Africa in a way that allows a new and better economy to develop in areas like Mpumalanga and in other parts of the country where the transition is going to affect communities significantly. So, for example, in the automotive sector, it is really going to be in the way that we do this and the extent, the solidness, I suppose, the kind of the depth of the foundation that we build in terms of community and worker buy-in that is going to really allow us to move forward. So lastly, South Africa sees climate change as an existential threat to the planet, to our country, and to our people. But I think right around the world, we are all in the recognition of that threat. The way that we then take it forward is something that is really unique to our circumstances. And I think that we've got a lot to learn from forums like this and the ability to really engage, to talk to each other about what is similar or different in our different contexts and how do we benefit from each other's experience. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Joanne. Next, we'll hand over to Enrico Brandt, the German Deputy Ambassador to South Africa, Lesotho, and Eswatini. Thank you, Mr. Brandt.
Thank you. Dear Mr. Mabena, dear members of the Presidential Climate Commission, the Just Energy Transition Project Management Unit at the Presidency, Joanne, and representatives from Mpumalanga, Excellencies, dear Deputy Ambassador of the European Union Delegation, distinguished guests from all participating countries, ladies and gentlemen. It gives me great pleasure to participate in this important forum, and thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to you today. As you know, Germany is very much committed in tackling climate change. We do our work at home, but we of course see that a very strong international cooperation is imperative in this area. This is why Germany offered herself as a partner when South Africa's president approached our government seeking cooperation in the South African just energy transition. We all know that the transition is as complicated as it is necessary. Coal has long been the backbone of industrial progress in our countries. Now it poses one of the greatest threats to our future. The transition is long, painful, costly, and it encompasses all walks of life. We have heard it from Joanne, the societal change, especially in South Africa. But there is hope because the better alternatives to coal are there. A famous South African once said, "The Stone Age did not end because of a lack of stones. It ended because there was a better option than stones out there." Once the stakeholders agree on that, we can start working and cooperating on solutions. They also include a number of opportunities, especially in the economic field. Ladies and gentlemen, the German government commends the efforts taken by South Africa to move the just energy transition forward. We are very happy to see that the new government, as you know, elections have been held in May, is very much committed in this process and calls for, I quote, a South African cabinet member, for getting ultra aggressive on renewables, end of quote. South Africa has passed very important legislation in this area in very short time. The Electricity Regulation Amendment Act, the Climate Change Act, and others. And I should add, it has been mentioned before, that now we do have uninterrupted electricity supply for more than 200 days now in this country, after more than 300 days with electricity cuts in 2023. This is a major achievement. The Just Energy Transition Partnership between South Africa and international partners, including Germany, is a very good example of seizing the opportunities that the transition proposes. The international partners have pledged a significant support for the Just Energy Transition in South Africa, with an overall initial pledge of $8.5 billion, of which Germany contributes approximately $1.9 billion. German specialists from GIZ cooperate with South Africa to develop innovative renewable energy regulation, enhance energy efficiency, and build the necessary infrastructure for a low-carbon future. Financial assistance is another crucial element, with Germany providing substantial funding through concessional and policy-based loans through the KfW Development Bank. 2 policy-based loans of a total of 800 million euros have been finalized, and the negotiations for a third policy-based loan have started. And programs like the Innovation Regions for Just Energy Transition and the Just Transition to a Decarbonized Economy for South Africa, which have brought us together today, are crucial for supporting those at the forefront of this energy transition. They create exchange platforms for different international regions, and they help implement measures for economic diversification here in the coal region of Mpumalanga. Especially, the establishment of the Mpumalanga Green Cluster Agency strengthens the just transition in that region. I'm happy to see that representatives from governments, unions, and businesses are here today. I am convinced that the transition to a sustainable future will be more successful if these stakeholders pull together. On the initiative of the German government, the German Trade Union Confederation, the International Labour Organization, and representatives from COSATU here in South Africa and BUSA joined forces last week at the Hamburg Sustainability Conference and launched a joint appeal for a socially just energy transformation that preserves good jobs and creates new ones. This call to action can be a guiding document for the way forward together as government, unions, and businesses for a just transition. The partnership between Germany and South Africa demonstrates how countries can collaborate effectively to address the pressing challenges, while unlocking new economic opportunities and promoting social justice. Further emphasizing Germany's commitment during its G7 presidency, additional JETP arrangements were concluded with countries including Indonesia, Vietnam, and Senegal, some of whom are in attendance here today. Each of these partnerships are partner-led, ensuring it meets the needs and circumstances of the specific country. Ladies and gentlemen, we are committed to continuing our cooperation with South Africa's energy transition. It's a partnership that goes beyond diplomatic agreements, embracing a holistic approach to climate action, sustainable economic development, and social justice. And this forum is an important part of the joint efforts. Thank you once again for the opportunity to speak to you today, and I'm very much looking forward to our continued collaboration and shared success in the years to come. I thank you all and wish you an exciting and fruitful study tour. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brandt. Our last speaker as part of our keynote addresses is Mr. Pencho Garrido Ruiz, who is the Deputy Head of Mission Delegation to the European Union to the Republic of South Africa. Mr. Ruiz, you are welcome.
Good morning to you all. The challenge with coming to speak last in these introductory words is that everything has been said already. But the good thing about it is that I can be short, which I'm sure you're going to appreciate. So let me first of all start by thanking our friends from GIZ and the German Ministry of Economic Affairs and Climate Action for having brought this international forum to South Africa. It could not be more timely and relevant as South Africa makes strides in its own energy transition. You will agree with me that the world has changed in ways that we could not have imagined 4 years ago, and that the change to our daily lives has come at a pace that we have not seen in modern history. The multiple shocks that we have recently experienced, from COVID-19 to the regional wars across the world, and the negative consequences of climate change, demand that we build a more sustainable economy. In Europe, carbon-intensive regions have been the backbone of our economic growth for decades, just as coal too has played a fundamental role in South Africa, with millions employed in the mining sector. But this world is vanishing, and it's not vanishing because policy or decision makers so decide. It is vanishing as a result of technological changes and the loss of competitiveness over the past decades. And because today we are faced with the need to provide a cleaner, healthier world to our children. The transformation is inevitable. What should not be inevitable is the social hardship. The journey away from fossil fuels and towards a greener economic model should be a socially fair journey. In Europe, we are well aware of the risk of an unmanaged and unprepared transition. Mass unemployment can shatter communities and affect negatively regions for generations to come. In Europe, there are around 230,000 Europeans working in mines and coal-fired power plants. And many more are working in the production of other fossil fuels and carbon-intensive industries. And each of them is sending the same message. And I understand that this is a green transition that has to happen. And I want a healthier, cleaner world for my children and grandchildren. But I have been working in this mine all my life. What will happen to me? And this is why we need to ease the transition of these regions, whether in Europe, whether in South Africa, or elsewhere around the world, to regenerate their economies and train workers for better jobs. No doubt this is a challenge, but one that brings new opportunities. To realize them, we in Europe have learned a few key elements that are necessary. The first one, to build local ownership and shared understanding of the direction of travel. This is a broad church that needs to bring together representatives from municipalities and regions, national administrations, industries, coal mines, civil society, and trade unions. The second one is to build on past experiences, and there are lessons that can be drawn from similar transitions. Take Poland, a member of the European Union, as an example. Today, coal makes 36% of the total energy supply of Poland, a reduction of 38% since the year 2000. And Poland is still on its journey to an energy system with more renewables. The European Union Just Transition Fund supports local economic diversification by investing in medium and small-sized enterprises working on renewable energy, clean mobility, and other green sectors. The fund will also invest in training of workers, many of whom are working in the fossil fuels, and equip them with new skills to work in renewable and climate-neutral industries. Sharing knowledge and experiences is fundamental to bring peers together to discuss how to catalyze change and create pipelines of quality projects that can generate sustainable jobs and bring new technologies, skills, and future-proof industries. The third and final one, technical advice. Because the transition will not be happening overnight. We are talking of a decade at best, and sometimes probably more. The European Union is partnering with South Africa in its ambition towards a net zero climate resilience economy by forming part of the Just Energy Transition Partnership. This is about more than just switching to cleaner energy sources. This transition must be just, inclusive, affordable, and equitable. It must protect the communities that are worst affected. Our commitment to the partnership with South Africa includes grants that will cushion the impacts of the transition in coal-intensive regions. These grants, which include a package of 1.2 billion rand ready to be deployed by the end of this year, will support job creation, energy security, and economic opportunities. So let me finish by saying that in this journey towards a socially just transition, South Africa can count on the European Union to remain a committed and reliable partner. Thank you very much.